So our next speaker is Dr. John Hainze, who's going to talk to us about climate change and the insect apocalypse. John, it's all yours.
Thank you, Phil, and thanks, Yolanda, for organizing this great session. I'm going to talk about my favorite subjects, my favorite victims of climate change, the insects and their decline. If I could have the next slide, please. These mayflies are an example. Interestingly, in a recent study, weather radar was used to find that there has been a 50% reduction in mayflies in the upper Mississippi Valley and in the Lake Erie Basin between 2012 and 2019. And this is happening all over the globe. Multiple studies around the world have quantified a decline in insects from Germany and Europe to North America, to South America, to Asia, to Africa. It's happening globally. And the popular media is calling it the insect apocalypse. This isn't about rare species. In fact, this is about species that were once abundant. It's a complicated story. Some insect species haven't changed and some have increased. But it's been death by 1,000 cuts. And insects are exposed to a variety of stressors that have caused these declines. Industrial agriculture is one such stressor. Next slide. Deforestation, another. Another is urbanization. Next slide, please. Urbanization, all responsible for habitat loss. Another stressor in the next slide is introduced species like this multicolored Asian ladybird beetle, which has displaced multiple North American native ladybird beetle species. The next slide, please. Pesticides, obviously a stressor for insect populations. Next slide, please. Pollution, nitrification. These are organisms that are used to low nitrogen environments. All the fertilizer we put on fields in our farms and in our neighborhoods, in fact, contributes to a higher nitrogen environment than they're used to. Finally, next slide of stressors. Another form of pollution, light pollution. Insects use light to locate mates and to navigate. And obviously all the light that we put out around the world today is a significant problem for them. Amongst these, in the next slide, there are three major factors involved. And these are habitat loss, intensive agriculture, and climate change. This warming and erratic climate is really causing problems for insects. One of these effects is fire, destroying habitat, and it's actually killing insects themselves. Next slide. Also, shifts in geographic range. These monarch butterflies, perhaps not migrating quite as far and ending their migration in the southern states permits disease to keep up with them and reduce migrant populations of the monarch butterfly. Next slide. Storm intensity has a major effect on the presence of insects. And similarly, in the next slide, drought has a significant effect all across the world. Climate change effects in global warming is changing ranges. And some insects aren't able to keep up. I'd like to talk about a couple of species in the Pacific Northwest. This next slide is of the island marble butterfly. This is a rare species. It's found only on San Juan Island, just north of us. The island marble butterfly actually was thought to be extinct for quite a while, since 1908. Then it was rediscovered about 20 years ago. The island marble butterfly, found only on San Juan Islands, used to live in prairies, which have been lost to urbanization and to agriculture in islands like the San Juan Islands. It originally fed on a mustard species called Minzi's pepperweed. Today, Mincy's pepperweed is often found surrounding lagoons on San Juan Island. And here it's threatened. Winter storm surges deplete these plants and then subsequently deplete island marble butterfly. And of these storm surges have become much more intense due to climate change and a rise in sea level. Thankfully, this butterfly has adapted and now feeds on some introduced mustard species elsewhere in the island. And the last population of the island marble butterfly falls in the boundaries of the San Juan Historic Park, where the Park Service is actively trying to support them. The next slide, please. Another Pacific Northwest species, the western bumblebee. The western bumblebee. It was widely distributed in Western North America. Now it's more rare, especially west of the Cascades. A fungal parasite that was introduced from Europe has a lot to do with this, but also drought resulting from climate change has had a significant effect on these bees because of the contribution to habitat degradation. Next slide, please. Here's the murder hornet, famous in Washington state. At least that's what the media calls it. Why should we care? Well, insects provide ecosystem services, pollination, control of pests, decomposition of organic matter, nutrient cycling, soil formation, water purification, and they act as food for other organisms. But beyond that, I think that it is a moral imperative for us to respect other forms of life, no matter how different from ours, that like us, strive to achieve their own ends. So what can we do? Next slide, please. What can we do? Here's the Washington state insect, the green darner dragonfly. What we can do is to construct more diverse habitats in our own yards with food plants that are favored by pollinators, for example. Some people plant milkweed for monarch butterflies. That's good on the east side of the state of Washington, not so much here. On San Juan Island, if you live there, you can plant the native mustard for the island marble butterfly. Limit the use of pesticides. Limit outside lighting. Be an insect advocate and speak up for conservation. Support candidates that will take action against climate change. And finally, as we've heard in earlier presentations, participate in citizen science projects. Thank you for your time, and look out for the little things in life.